Do you have anything you want to say in conclusion?
Shamans were perhaps the first individuals to cultivate practices that took them to the uncanny. They were not liked by their communities generally. They're always suspected of doing nefarious things because they're uncanny. They're weird, even in their own community. They're odd people. That's what they're the ones that know, like the classic subject, right? And I think the thing we need to know is that to me points to something even deeper that is I think, at the core of what's going on here in this discussion. And I keep referring to this book, How God Becomes Real by Lerman, who's one of the great anthropologists right now. And she talks about the reality of spirits and that they're not real in the two, like, so our culture, our standard modernity, we have the two ways in which things can be real. They can be subjectively real, they can be objectively real, and we don't know how the heck they go together, but we'll just pretend that that's okay, right? And then what people like Heidegger and others have been pointing out is the older, basically, at least in the ancient Greece idea that
Remember, embody. And during this portion of the show, like, get up and stretch and embody. Because that's what I'm going to do.
What grounds the possibility of them fitting together is the most real. And I tried to coin that term, the transjective. And Lerman basically argues that a lot of the secret phenomena are real in a way I would call transjective. And give me a second, because this ties into the very thing I think we want to talk about, which is these entities don't exist by our assertion as romantic or by our reception of them from the world smashing into us objectively. Remember, object means to smash into. They exist dialogically. Jesus even says that where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am also. Right? This is the idea that these entities are realized, and I know these entities are realized dialogically, right? You know, Jesus is only, and again, I'm not making a metaphysical claim here, but Jesus is only real to you if you pray to him, if you talk to him, if you let him into your life, your life, even your evangelical and fundamentalist language being used that way. And by the way, this is not specific to Christianity, this is Lerman's point. So this is a different sense of real, and if you'll allow me, there's a transjective realness. And it's very, very important, because the transjective realness that is approached dialogically, right, puts us on the horizon of intelligibility. And that's the place where we have to seriously play for transformation if we want to move from one world to another. That's the liminal zone. That's the roof of the cave, right? That place there. That's the cognitive roof of the cave. And what's happening in shamanism, right, is that the monological view of the mind is being directly challenged, because the shaman is basically they're in a dialogical identity with other entities, right, and theos, to be possessed by the god, right, and they're challenging our monological mind, they're challenging our monophasic. This goes towards Capella's question about, well, what's a normal and what's an altered state of consciousness. I agree with David Lewis Williams that we should stop thinking of it as a binary. It's a continuum, right? And what we have is a certain state, and I think this state that we call normal consciousness is exactly the one that is highly coordinated with what Taylor calls the buffered self, the monological self that is locked and closed within, and it's protected by a barrier of completely coherent propositions that prevent any of this yucky stuff from getting into us in some
Are you
ways.
satisfied with what
Shamanism
you got,
uncanny
Luke?
because it's in us deep enough, but it calls to us to the biological in some ways. And the shaman is uncanny because it's in us deep enough, but it calls to us to the biological. It calls us to the transjective.
That's like seizure-inducing stuff, guys. I didn't realize it was in there. Hey, everybody! Look at that, Josh and Luke and Magic and Eve. And Brad's apparently here because Magic's saying, "Oh, there he is." And Chris, hey, thanks. Chris has a fresh, hot new drop about the community standards version, but I suppose we better get to towards the show part. Here, let's do the fancy theme song. Still January. It's still January. I was in my cell alone. I have no idea what I just swallowed. Fresh, hot, and stinky. I guess they took down something of his that he liked. Okay, let's do the saving throw things we do around here where you get to choose between survival, social, wisdom, or heart to base your savings throw. If you get over 10, you take half damage from the mind control that follows. And frankly, this is a Lobster Monkey episode with wizards from Toronto. So if you comment in the live stream, you get a +2 bonus. Hey, survivalist with a 3. Socialist, 19. Doing well today. Wisdom, folks. Lovers of wisdom, 7. Almost enough. Heart, folks, 17. Speaking of lovers of wisdom and whatnot, I got the honor and the privilege of doing the thumbnail for this particular Grail Country that just premiered 2 hours ago. And you can watch some of that for a minute. What? Yeah. Okay. And check out the thumbnail.
Welcome to Grail Country. I have 3 special guests with me today. I have my friend Sam with the Transfigured podcast and YouTube channel. I have Dr. John Vervaeke, cognitive scientist and also YouTube personality. And I have Dr. Jordan Daniel Wood.
Let me say, while you're enjoying this presentation, especially just like in that moment, mere moments ago, while you're listening to Nathan of Grail Country in the top right corner speak, very carefully, since I'm not in OBS, I can't zoom for you, very carefully watch John Vervaeke's face, okay? Okay.
With the Transfigured podcast and YouTube channel. I have Dr. John Vervaeke, cognitive scientist and also YouTube personality. And I have Dr. Jordan Daniel Wood, who is starting to become a new light in our little corner of the internet, kind of making the rounds. He's written a book called The Whole Mystery of Christ, about the theology of Maximus the Confessor. I thought primarily today what we would talk about is participation, but I had an interesting question I kind of wanted to start with rather than diving right into the philosophical question about participation. And Sam's channel name kind of inspired that question. His channel is called Transfigured, and it is a reference to the Transfiguration. So what I wanted to ask is, what kind of knowing is involved in the transfiguration? Like if we had a video camera at the transfiguration, like what would the video camera have captured? How is it that the disciples know that it's Moses?
Luke, you were there, right? If you're still here, was this all right? Did it get really good? Tell the folks about it, because we're not going to cover that today. What we're going to cover today is here. Let's just let's find it. How about that, right? Sylvia, come on now.
This is Paul.
And then this part, where was it? Here, maybe? This part was actually, it's at the end, but it's really relevant. So let's see if it's this thing.
Also, don't forget rebellion. It's what Dostoevsky writes about when he writes Letters from the Underground, that, you know, if you would have the absolute perfect world, the Matrix makes the same point. To what degree would you blow it up?
Elaborate on that. So
Plato, Drew Highland, finite transcendence. Plato's whole argument is we are finite transcendent. We are beings that are capable of transcending ourselves. But if we only pay attention to that, we fall prey to hubris.
Right.
If we only pay attention to our finitude, we fall prey to tyranny and servitude. And we have to keep the two in ongoing opponent processing. And that's what we want to, keep trying to do is resolve it into one of these or the other. And we keep going back and forth. And Plato is about, you can't resolve that. You have to always hold those two together.
And of course, there's the additional complication, which would be, well, you were enticed, let's say, into the idea that you would be better off being a man, but that's really not a pathway that's open to you in some fundamental sense either, because there are physiological impediments to that they can't be overcome. I mean, I've done a reasonable amount of research into like penile construction, for example, and to call that a primitive science is to give it far more credit than it's due. And so that's a huge technical problem. And then there's a problem, of course, that lurks underneath that, which is even if you do manage that, which is highly unlikely and extremely invasive and unbelievably dangerous and very experimental, and there's no long-term studies whatsoever done on the consequences, you're still not going to be fully physiologically functional as a man. You're not going to be able to procreate as a man. Of course,
procreate. Okay. So since we're transcending space and time with Toronto professors here today on the Grimgrid stream, that's great news for everybody. We're probably also going to engineer some knowledge compartments. The thing is, before the front half of this month has been a wild ride, and before I there was this stream that's called the Beggars and Buskers, Grifters and Shills stream, and it was like scheduled to happen as soon as I saw a beggar. And then I said, all right, guys, I scheduled it way far out. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to run clips you guys put in the clip stream. I know, Sylvia, give me a second. I'm going to run all the clips you guys put in the clip stream, in the beggar stream. And then there was the whole handcuffed incident. And I did that story instead of following through on running everybody's clips. So I'm going to be inserting those. And oh boy, there's a lot throughout this wonderful adventure we have. And that wasn't the part of this I wanted to show you from Paul. So we're gonna keep looking.
Right. We have to keep the two in.
We're gonna keep looking. He smiles here. Maybe this is it.
No sense. If you understand evolution, there isn't a calming.
All right, Sylvia, I'm coming.
This
is in some ways connected to the conversation that John and myself and Sam have had about evolution and telos. And I find Sam's argument quite compelling. Sam had a conversation on a smaller channel after I release this, he'll probably drop it in the. He sent it in an email, but I'm kind of in a hurry right now and I can't find it and drop it in. But this is all very, very interesting.
No intentionality to evolution, but you know, I'm just speaking that way, right? There's no project of now we'll have the organism that will.
Again, there's no intentionality in evolution. You can't know that. You really can't. You suspect it, but you can't know it. And one of the interesting things that's happening right now is of course the awakening of machine learning. And in some ways, machine learning is somewhat akin to evolution. We are taking sort of a machine agent and we're setting it on the world to.
All right. There's this part. The paper company product line. Okay, I've been toying with the notion of, instead of the Paper Street Soap Company, the Soap Street Paper Company, and as such, well, okay, it's coming to pass that what I've been trying to do on this channel, I have to go back through and try to do again, but like with more reverence and more seriousness and whatnot. And so as far as this particular channel goes, there's you might encounter different types of product, okay? And one of those type of products is this live stream. Now, a live stream might get a BE edition, which stands for Bris edition, which is a disgusting reference to circumcision. But it's where I don't do anything other than go through this live stream and like chop off all the unnecessary fluff and just leave, you know, just. And then there's also an edition called kintsugi, which is like the Japanese art of putting gold in the broken parts. A kintsugi cut, KC, which is cool because Paintball for Jesus, Kansas City this spring somehow. A kintsugi cut of an episode will be like with clips that are like, if people are talking and they say a thing and then you put a clip that has what they were talking, what they just referenced, like you bring the reference into the discussion for people, that's a kintsugi cut of a thing. So those are like that. Okay. And then there's the eye stalk wiggle, which is just a bunch of clips, like clip after clip after clip that my eye stalk saw and brought to you, or clip collage of clips reaped or whatnot. And also, finally, there's this thing called a clip distillate. The one currently most being procrastinated on is the Huberman cannabis distillate, because that thumbnail is going to be awesome and the title is hot. And what a clip distillate is similar to a Briss edition, where I cut out all the fluff of my own material. It's sort of like a Briss edition of a really long conversational video. As an example that will buy me time to run away for a minute, I can present to you this one that I once made, that involves hey, well, sorry, we're at this part, and then you share this one instead, and you show them how to search on your channel. You got to go way over here to find the little search thingy, and then you say horse. Will horse searching for it? Oh, look, guys, look, it's a convenient link to Jordan Peterson's Black Sun song. That's referenced in some podcast things. There's a clipstream wiggle. You know, there's, like I was just talking about those wiggles. That's none. Four is four. The Apocalypse, Jordan Peterson. This is one. This here is a clip distillate, kind of also a little bit of a kintsugi cut, of the Apocalypse of Meaning with Jordan Peterson and friends.
that logo is called The Meaning of Music, and it's actually a sculpture that I made in 1985. I'm pleased today to have the opportunity to speak with people, John Vervaeke, Bishop Barron, and Jonathan Pajot. I'm going to ask you what you think meaning means. Implicit idea, I suppose, that meaning has different depths, and that religious meaning is among the deepest of depths, and like a lotus flower that sort of comes up from the darkest depths, up through the dark water, and then blooms on the surface of the water in the sun. I'd like you to riff on that. We'll go from man.
All right. You see there how I put in that part from his Q&A. Well, actually, that's from my Jordan Peterson, An Experience of God video. But me bringing that clip to reference the that's a kintsugi cut kind of move you got there. Yeah. I got a link to the Chris show, I think. Here, this is here. I'll give that to you because we're all in this together. Here's copy clean link. Drop it in the chat. There, and if you guys could find me the Bishop Barron one that gets made out of what I'm playing for you now, and drop that in the chat while this is playing, then it would be like we were a participatory ship on a sea of information and not just a show or something.
And to do that.
Talking about meaning in this context, we're using meaning as a metaphor, is we're doing it all right now, and we're doing it like this. I'm standing out, I'm salient. There's an element of arousal, there's affectively laden connectedness. This is what's known as embodied cognition. This is a dynamical self-organizing process, and you can feel it, and you're evolving in this dynamically coupled fashion, a salience landscape that makes you feel that you're here now in this particular state of consciousness, in this situational awareness. So you're deeply fundamentally connected. Central cognitive agency. If you don't have that, you're not a cognitive agent. And this dynamical, embodied, evolving connectedness, a core feature and dimension of our whole agency. To bind together, we're looking through it, and by means of it, it affords our agency. Celebrate it. Opposite of what happens in addiction. My agency. Is opening up, the world is opening up, inexhaustible fount of emerging intelligibility. That's the experience of sacredness, deepest mutual resonance between ourselves and the depths of reality. I hope that was helpful.
I was listening to the Jupiter Symphony. When you look at the world, there's a central point of focus. It's a very small area that becomes very clear, and the nothingness you don't even perceive. It's just not there. And that's sort of that's very much like what consciousness is. And you focus your fovea on what's most meaningful. So that's sort of like a metaphor for consciousness and meaning. And then my goal is to have an interesting conversation. That story that's guiding me is nested in a larger story, which outside of that is another story. And then outside of that, there's another presumption, which is, well, why would I bother trying to make the world a better place? And that's where you start to shade into the religious. It's like, who exactly am I imitating when I enact that morality? Implicit figure at the outer edge of the narrative structuring of my consciousness and meaning realization, and the nothingness you don't even perceive. It's just not there. This is independent of religious belief as far as I'm concerned. Christ is the symbolic realization of our culture's determination of the embodiment of the ideal. And it's an image, and it grips us. It's the thing we imitate or we fight against. We're in that whether we like it or not. And then, and I suppose that was an experience of God, if you want to put it that way. And that's where this starts to shade into the religious per se. So that's it for me. So Bishop, do you want to take it from there?
Virtually. Good to be with all of you. Canadian Jesuit. I guess I would say meaning is to be in a purposive relationship to a value. The true, the good, and the beautiful, right? The three transcendental properties of being. The mind is like a bird that flies and it perches for a time, it looks, and then it flies again. And a meaningful life is one that's lived in a purposive relationship to values. It's seeking them. A life lived in purposive relationship to the source of goodness, truth, and beauty, which is God. We experience things in the world as more or less true, good, and beautiful. And we also notice them ordered hierarchically. That's truer, that's better, that's more beautiful. The properties of being, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And being is by its very nature unlimited. You see those hierarchies only finally in relationship to some unconditioned form of goodness, truth, and beauty. That's religious meaning, it seems to me, is to be in purposive relationship to that. And so I can't go on indefinitely. That would make my act of the will incoherent. Be in relationship to this most alluring horizon of all desire. And so finally, I want not just this particular good, I want goodness itself. That's a religious relationship.
Jonathan?
The reason why we perceive hierarchy is because we're always judging or perceiving or trying to evaluate whether something is good. This desire makes you see the pattern of the apple because you have to engage with it. You have to relate to it. You have to eat it. But this pattern, let's say, of binding, it stacks up. But it also does something else, is that it stacks up people together. It binds us together as well. That can also kind of help you understand religious practice. Every act of recognition of a good is going to be a mini celebration, but that stacks up together in terms of people gathering and singing and in order to celebrate the highest good.
Let me just, that's dopaminergically mediated. There's a fundamental neuroscientific reality underneath the idea that to perceive something good in relationship to a higher good is a celebration. And I mean that directly, like.
Yeah, yes, it was totally Jonathan Pajot's turn. Now, yeah, well, thank you, Magic. Hey, Santo Antonio, good to see you. This is what we call a clipped distillate. I'm going over some of the product lines for Larpgate Year 3 of the paper company. And this is an example clipped distillate. The thing you've been watching and have 2 more minutes of is from the first 40 minutes of this discussion. It was the first real attempt at a distillate I did and realized that it might be useful when people reference a talk to have like a Cliff Notes edition like this with all the good stuff in it.
Meaning is derived from this nested hierarchy, and then they felt that whatever had descended, it seemed that as if it was sorrowful, and it departed from me slowly.
And these interruptions of the kintsugi cut that I put in is like, for me, this is Jordan Peterson telling the story of the time he rejected the Holy Spirit. And much like the pizza bites from my days that have been revealed in recent podcasts, I fixate sometimes, and this, much like now I'm more fixated on how he's the metropolitan of the Church of not following stupid rules. At this point in my life, I was fixated on this bit, yeah, you know.
So in the same way that the world reveals itself to us as this hierarchy of the good, it also reveals itself to us cosmically. That's why there are temples. That's why there's the law of Moses that was received on the top of the mountain, that there is a cosmic revelation of the same pattern that you encounter as an individual. And so that is what ends up creating these revelations of being into the world and binding us together as a body instead of just these disparate individuals. Of these revelations, which is the one that binds the most reality together into itself? And I think that it's like Christ doesn't just go down into the underworld and resurrect. When he comes back up, the underworld is empty and death is defeated, and that's the end. The fact that we recognize it, that we've brought it together, that we've celebrated it, means that it is part of this kind of cosmic revelation. We've discounted it completely, but I think we're at a point now with this meaning crisis where
I'd like to add that video you see as a promoted thumbnail in this image, frog skin abominations, is why Michael Levin will never talk to me, personally. no, I don't. It doesn't appear that anybody in the chat found it, but if you did, it might have kicked it for being, what do you call it? Because you can't drop links in live streams. That's not cool. So if you go to the Chris's show and you search for agency, what comes up? Is it agency, Chris? Or is it becoming a person? Oh yes, I'm looking for the Baron one. Maybe I just put Baron in. Baron. This was derived from my work on that conversation and collaboration with the Mighty Chris show. Please enjoy. You're in the middle. You can't. Bishop Baron's fancy hit.
That logo is called The Meaning of Music.
Can I just jump in? The mind and the intelligible form light up each other. Light up each other. Each one illumines the other. So the objectively valuable addresses me. It rearranges me. It rearranges me. It's turned me upside down. Down. What was the first song that rocked your world, changed you?
Now, this is actually I think a really important part because, plus you get a +7 indigo save if you can follow what I'm about to say. Okay. All right. So why tells us about the diffusion limited graphs? I thought they were diffusion aggregate graphs. It feels more right to me. Plus, I like calling them DAGs. But it's the way they start out as these little things that are sticky, and random parts are all bouncing around, and some stick and some don't. And if one sticks, then the part that sticks becomes sticky too, and they forms out. They call them slow grows, trees, right? And these moments that I think Baron are talking about are like the sticky moments in our memory. And it's like if you go to my discussion with Karen Wong, how like we go down into our memory tree, our monkey mind goes down the memory tree and comes back with flowers for the conversation. It's so these slow grow memory trees are a thing, and I hope you followed that.
Rearranged your consciousness like the Rolling Stone. Rock my world. Rock my world. Rock my world. Summum bonum.
As I recall correctly, when I ran a stream with this before, I got a copyright strike because Chris didn't get that beat from a copyright-free place, and I'm running a risk of shutting down the stream at the moment. So I will take you instead to an actual point that's relevant to what I'm trying to accomplish with this fancy pants. What do we call it? It looks like this. Oh yes, Trance-Ending Time and Space with Toronto professors. You see this particular I put the image that's shown on the thumbnail right over the top of this into the AI bots, and this is how it kicked out. And I love how it made Paul's beard into a clock. That's just really neat. Thank you AI robot slave demon folks. The thing I wanted to search for, you can find if you go to the search on my channel and do campfire. What oh, because it's on. Why? No, it does too. What? How embarrassing. Let's go to the playlist. Is it on the Vervaeke Crush playlist? Maybe. Wow. Here's how to navigate the Grim Gris channel. Better than Grim Gris. Beautiful. Oh, this. See, campfire. Aha. Oh, yeah, campfire. You see this, right? Witness me! It says campfire. I just searched for campfire. I couldn't find it. What's up with that?
I can't remember which one of the Weinsteins introduced this idea, but ran with it a little bit independently. Digital campfire. Weird because it breaks a lot of the social grammar. Your face is very large for me right now. No. That's the point. Mine is for you too, or for the viewers. I just met you. This is inappropriate intimacy. But the thing, all of that, no, it's thrown away. Its own grammar. At Rosano, the campfires, people are lit. It's like what you have in a circle.
Right.
It's something very primordial, but it's also using it in this really novel way. Socrates is very critical. Of course, the problem with that is it's intended. You're supposed to pay attention to that. That divide has been transcended, but it's also recorded with people moving between these conversations beyond that divide. It affords something really new in how we can interact with each other.
It's a really interesting playground, kind of postmodern tendencies with trial by fire, everything goes. And also searching for the connective tissue, right? That's very well said. That's briefly being embedded within it. It's been quite wonderful to watch the direct impact it's had on individual lives.
Yeah.
At the bonfire, we can sit and play music, right?
Right.
And with the people who have done such good work like yourself, who've put it into the medium, filtered down into the minds and the mouths of the people, and then we gather in small groups.
Oh, this is wonderful.
And recovered gems, little moments. Aha! This is what I've been doing my life. This meta extractable point, people that I've come into contact with, take the content of this dialogue right here, one person out of 100, somehow extract that piece and transmit it across time.
Oh,
There are ways that some people are working. It's a fascinating way to level up finding insight. There are ways that some people are working. It's a fascinating way to level up finding insight.
yeah.
Now, so that's the function of the clip distillates, really, is to take the meta extractable points and extend them across space and time. But hold on. Magic, what is your relationship to General Griswold Graham? Magic is the matron of the Shadow Cabal. And I don't think the hive mind's a good place for an inquisition. But sorry, Tyler. So the thing is, I was working on a clip distillate for this conversation that extends beyond time and space, or whatever the hell they called it. And let's see if this works. Let's see. I should be able to play the distillate. I don't. Like, I think this was the first 20 minutes of their hootenanny. Oh no, did I not remux it? I might not have remuxed it, guys. Hold on. Here, here's more. No, I can't do that one. Maybe that part Paul was talking about.
To grab data, but there's a lot of intentionality beneath that machine learning, and it's being set out into the world.
Never suffer the possibility of extinction. That's impossible. You can't do that. I think that, and if relevance realization, the meaning, is a kind of ongoing rapid cognitive evolution, there is no final form of that. This is one of the areas where I criticize the Platonic framework. Plato's notion of the sacred as completion, static perfection, that I find is very problematic, because I don't think it actually sits well with his notion of, and Socrates.
I like to think of music in that regard too.
Yes.
And you think about what Bach.
Okay.
I'm almost positive this is the part that I've been trying to show you while this has been running the whole time. Almost positive.
It goes on, and it's interesting, but I suspect a lot will start this video and get discouraged, because I really didn't get into it until like it was like 1:15 or so. But there's good stuff in there, and I think you sort of get kind of this little mini duet of Jordan Peterson biblical series right here in this video. And thought it was cool. So I am out of time and I have to stop this recording. And
like you said, the first part for most people is going to be really horrible. But I had started working on a clip distillate of it because for the people that I play on the level where for the people who it's not horrible with also. And so here's the clip distillate of I think was like the first 20 minutes of the what you call it in question. Now that and always remember to remux your recordings. Always remember, Embody, remux your recordings.
A while back, and for those of you watching, Friston is one of the world's premier neuroscientists, and he said something to me that was extremely illuminating. The emotion system signals an explosion of entropy, which might be part of combinatorial explosion and part of the mere fact that things can be perceived in a frame problem. Perceived in a multitude of ways. So that accounts for negative emotion, but to construe positive emotion as a response to a decrease in entropy that's associated with voluntary action struck me as, well, it's another form of unification, right? Because it brings both emotional channels under the rubric of entropy reduction. And so that relates them as well to a very fundamental physical reality, insofar as entropy is a physical reality.
Yeah, I would argue it's not the sole cause, but I would argue a contributing factor to the replication crisis is the fact that we're overprivileging innovation as opposed to integration in psychology. So Mark has been one of the people, in fact, just to bring it back around, who has been really trying to integrate the predictive processing framework with affect.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's very, so that, because it isn't obvious that the AI models, for example, experience anything that you might consider akin to emotion. But if you can relate negative emotion to an explosion of potential pathways and relate positive emotion to a reduction, then you're starting to make a very tight connection between information processing and emotional experience, let's say, or at least the meaning of emotional experience.
Right, and the brain is trying to predict the world because the more it can predict the world, the more adaptive capacity it has to be proactive. It's very easy, it's much better to avoid the tiger than to confront the tiger, right?
So that was as far as I had made it through the clip distillate. But as you can see, if you don't have an hour and a half, if you get that 2.5 minutes instead of 20 minutes, it saves you a bunch of time. And I think that was the relevant bit because, you know, he's bringing up how they're looking into it for how to make the AI suffer and then be human. What? Oh. But it's also it brings the positive emotion and well, frankly, it's the entropy thing because as you remember, class, life life eats itself to get one over on entropy, and that's kind of what love is. Hey, Lynn, how you doing? Does the eye thing have the ability to get back up if it's downed? You're never gonna keep it down. If it gets knocked down, it gets up again. An extra save? Again, why would you get an extra one, Len? For the distillation? No. But as I was going over earlier in the episode, in the paper company product line, which is a Paper Street Soap Company Scramble. For Live Case Year 3, I'm gonna run. Don't forget, you gotta run a bunch of clips. That first one was from Bart. Here's another one from Bart from the clip stream. Welcome everybody. This is what it's like here. I hope you're having a good time. No. Than that.
Like many of you,
Thanks, Bart.
spent a significant amount of time immersed enjoyed and inspired the stories I've experienced through a variety of mediums, there's one thing I've always wondered about. If stories, like all forms of art, are supposed to reflect life, either by directly representing it or by forming a more symbolical mirror, then why are they so different from reality? And by different, I don't mean that they take place in imaginary worlds or are filled with fantastical elements. I mean that at their most fundamental level, there exists a dissonance between the way stories are structured and the way we experience our own lives. Perhaps the most famous conceptualization of storytelling is Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, in which he uncovers the archetypal structure, the so-called monomyth, although more commonly referred to as the hero's journey, that is fundamental to countless stories across different ages and different cultures. The hero's journey articulates the transformative process, or simply the adventure, that a hero embarks upon, which leads them outside of their own ordinary world into a new, unknown one, where they encounter specific characters, face a crisis, and eventually return as a changed person.
There's a way to say and do what you want to say and do without having to use the words of flames.
Chad, the reason I talk about burning Lutheran churches down is because those are the exact words that Martin Luther used about synagogues.
Okay.
He said, burn them down.
And fuck that guy. Seriously.
Well, you just got it. Yes.
No, I've known this. I've known what you're saying. That still doesn't mean that still doesn't think I mean that doesn't mean I think you should say it.
Chad.
Heard that two wrongs don't make a right?
No. And Caleb just said the exact same thing. Two wrongs don't make a right. I'm not doing a wrong. What I am doing is I am reminding Lutherans that Luther was a bad person.
There's a way
All right, and that makes 3 from Bart. There was an entry in between Bart's entries there from Jay, but it wasn't a clip. It was 2 references and complete videos. And I'm in the middle of a live stream, Jay. It's got to be, a format I'm ready to deal with But the clip stream is a place on the Broken Clock Tower Discord, which is visually, symbolically, no, not that one, not that, no, this one, which is symbolically represented by the building on the right, where the Clock Tower Tavern being where the Fringe Encounter live streams happen, and also the tavern in the Discord. This part of the show is we're at the Metanoia Marina, you see, and there's the Lobster Monkey Lighthouse, and the clips are from the Lobster Monkeys. And I hope that all makes sense, cause Now Eve has asked for bonus saves, and I'll tell you what, this is apparently going to be one of those really, really, really long streams. Magic, you can tap out of it. You don't feel obligated to be here. But because I'm going to go through now. In the beginning, I told you about how there's Briss editions where I cut out all the nonsense. There's going to be a whole lot of nonsense in between the points I make as I make my way through Pastor Paul's homeroom coverage today of the Toronto Professors Transcending Space and Time by people extracting meta-extractable point clips. And we want what's best for you. We want what's best for you. But before I can do that, here's this.
Hey there, I'm Chad the Alcoholic, and the creator of the Friday Morning Nameless channel. I'd like to welcome you to join us for the latest and greatest and most up-to-date information about all the things happening in this corner of the internet. I want to thank you for your time and your attention.
No, Magic. No. You haven't been dismissed, Magic. I just know that you personally feel like you should be here for everybody who shows up in the hive mind. And this particular episode is scheduled to be both long and thinky-talky. And that's not the part of the show you're usually around for. So I didn't want you to feel like you had to be here just to keep everybody company. I mean, you can see Third Wave wasn't into it. But no, you weren't dismissed. I'm just, it's going to be one of those ones. But I'm glad for everybody who can ride with our big thinky-talky stuff. Here's some of Pastor Paul's open for what we're covering. It'll probably be cut out of the final edition, but most of this will be. Frankly, most of this won't make it past the bris. Most of this won't make it past the bris.
To play some of the pieces that sort of are similar, I think, in quality to the biblical series. Now, some of you might be wondering why I haven't done any more Exodus work. Just this morning, in fact, I woke up, opened up my YouTube studio, and so I had a copyright strike from the video where I talked about the rewilding of Christianity, where I played a very little small segment of the Exodus seminar on that video, and had a copyright strike. So that's the first copyright strike.
I'm sorry for those of you just listening, but the things going on in the Hive Mind chat have required me to roll a savings throw for myself versus Magic giving me so I'm going to pick one and not tell you, but you can play along and choose one as well. For me, it's versus Magic. For you, it can be versus the mind control in the show. Survival, social, wisdom, and heart. You get to pick one. Choose! Survivalist with an 11, the number of transformation. Socialist, that's way better than you did last time, I think. 16, you're still doing fine. Wisdom, folks, down to a 2. Down to a 2. This stuff is going to get to you. That's probably why lunch left. And heart is 12. 12. I cut out all the fat. I went through a reaping binge, and now I am fully roped. By the way, our good new friend Santo Antonio was asking about what the hell is this LARP gate? As you can see from this particular banner, it's year 3. You can search the word on my channel and get some nice clip collage explanations. But I can't really go over that now. Welcome to Being Virtually Not Alone. I'm Grim Grizz. This is... Don't forget. And now back to Pastor Paul breaking down the... actually, he's just telling us about a copyright strike right now.
Strike that I've had ever. So I, there's a way to contact Daily Wire, and I sent them a copy of Jordan's tweet and said, here's the takedown, what gives? So we'll see what Daily Wire has to say about the takedown. I don't know if they want more process or if they're just going to say, well, Jordan can say what he wants, but we own the material. Who knows? So until further notice, there won't be any Exodus stuff coming out from me, just because I maybe could do a little bit of something with some of the teasers that they put out, but none of that. But this is here on YouTube, and so I think we can get into some of this. And
I wanted to say at this point that who is he talking? Who is he giving this until further notice to? Okay, and maybe some of those people missed this homeroom, right?
they want more process, or if they're just going to say, well, Jordan can say what he wants, but we own the material.
So
who knows? So until further
as
notice,
a
there won't
budding
be any
reaper,
Exodus stuff coming out from me, just because I maybe could do a little bit of something with some of the teasers.
As a budding reaper, one might grab this as such and say, Exodus, PVK, Exodus, PSA, and then see you see these slidey bars down here.
There's a process, so we'll see what Daily Wire has to say.
They move when you do your little arrow keys. See, it moves the bar too, the little blue thing.
Jordan can say what he wants, but we own the material. Who knows? So until further notice, there won't be any Exodus stuff coming out from me. Just I maybe could do just because.
I guess we give them what, that part.
But say about the takedown. So we'll see what Daily Wire has to say. Daily Wire and ever. And had a copyright strike. Seminar on that video. A small segment of the Exodus seminar on that video. And had a copy. Notice there won't be any Exodus stuff.
You share and you copy, and boom. You got a clip. Now, to be fair, the Your Clips section in YouTube is one of the most horrible of all time. And they just put everything you've ever made in a chronological giant chunk. And so if you start reaping things, you get you get a lot of this in there, which is why it's kind of convenient to organize them in the Homeroom on the Discord. But here's this.
Reconciling is emerging of very creative human beings. And many Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the Lutheran mystic which the Catholic Church would canonize, he said we're entering into a period of religionless Christianity. And these very same millennials on the staff, I don't know how many of them go to church. I have a feeling not many. But they love what I'm saying. I don't know why. And they love the gospel in a very different way than we did. It's really not about worshiping Jesus for them. It's about following Jesus. This is a whole different. And we put way too much effort and energy into the correct worship form, which only divided us. This is the way the Methodists do it. They're reconciling it.
I thought that was a hot one myself. Here's that link to the PVK Exodus PSA if you want to share it with anybody. Oh, it's Lenny, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So what are we doing? We're doing back. You just clipped over that, right? Yeah. And now you lost your time. Where were you? You were even there you were.
This is Paul.
Let's go to where he's actually starts.
And viability of religion. Part of what's happening with the development of some of these conferences is that they're quite intentionally I'm encouraging different people who want to host a conference to host a conference their way. That way we'll get a diversity of takes and approaches to what's going on in this little corner. So
Dadgummit, there's another PSA, Pastor Paul.
What's the function of con?
What's the function of Pastor Paul giving me all these PSAs?
Conference to host a conference their way. They encourage the religion and a little bit. That there are the three of us there. California in May. Jonathan Peugeot, and we have in the works planned a conference with Jonathan Peugeot. Little early indication. We have in the works planned a conference with Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke.
Call that the May
we have
conference
in the works planned
teaser.
a conference with Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke and myself.
Stretch it out to get as much of it as I can, which is a minute. You get one whole minute, and then you get the best minute you can.
Little early.
I guess I don't need to go that far. We don't need to go into John.
Get a takes an approach a little early.
What's the function of consciousness in the global web? So the idea.
So that's like it used to be a lot harder to reap, but now YouTube has given us these tools. They're using all the data about what we reap and whatnot, and for their own whatnots. You can do it clean in OBS if you need to. That's where I make the distillates and stuff. Now that I have a pause button. Fire and brimstone. You want some fire and brimstone, Lenny? Maybe. I think I get triggered, but this is gonna be a long, thinky, talky one. So, but there's a second PSA. See, the thing is, as far as I can tell, at least for me, it's easiest to associate with the group of people who always watch Paul. And so, like, not always, obviously, but that's Homeroom. Like, did you go to Homeroom today? Yeah, I saw Paul. And so, these little reaping clip PSAs, and it keeps track of history a little bit. And it's a service to us as we play together in these internet and thinky toky wolders. These internet and thinky toky wolders. Wolders, guys.
Is your consciousness is something like your computer desktop,
Yeah.
and your unconscious is all the files. And what consciousness is I can bring anything onto the desktop, and I can manipulate it, and then I can broadcast it back to whatever I need.
Right. And you can, you update your unconscious doing that too, right? Because part of what consciousness does seem to do is to assess faulty unconscious actions, recalibrate them, and rejig them. So consciousness is this thing that moves up and down the hierarchy of unconscious and regulates it.
Right. But here's the thing, and this, of course, is the frame problem. You can't check all of the possible error,
Well, that's definitely a problem.
So, and this is, I'm not imposing this.
Okay, and again, that's a big piece of what we're all dealing with is that problem of scale that, and John goes through this very well in his Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. You can't check all the possibilities. You don't have enough time in your life to check all the possibilities. And so that's why there are frames. And you frame things so that you can reduce the combinatorial explosiveness, the incredible complexity of the world, and you can focus on an aspect or something. And in that way, you can make the world small enough so that you can actually engage in it. And consciousness is a big part of that.
Now, I think... Hey, Michael Walt. JBP interruptions making me mad. What, interrupting him or him interrupting people? Or...
It's the thing, and this
conscious actions, recalibrate them to
up. And conscious is all the files, and what consciousness is I can bring anything onto the desktop, and I can manipulate it, and then I can broadcast it back to whatever I need.
Right. And
you know, I gotta say, during this thing, I got that they suffer from the axiomatic presupposition of the existence of a self. And they say, what is consciousness? And consciousness is sort of the self. It's the fiction creates itself, the self-organizing criticality I'll hopefully I'll get there cleaner when we hit that clip or something.
And you can, you update your unconscious doing that too, right? Because part of what consciousness does seem to do is to assess faulty unconscious actions, recalibrate them, and rejig them. So consciousness is this thing that moves up and down the hierarchy of unconscious and regulates it.
Right. But here's the thing, and this, of course, is the frame problem. You can't check all of the possible error,
well,
right?
Like that's definitely a problem.
So, and this is, I'm not imposing this.
Okay. And we'll be interested in
Working memory. It's to reorganize and restructure, like chunking, so we can right. But then it's, and why? When do we need that? Well, we need it in situations. Compare when you can drive your car like a zombie and when you can't drive your car like a zombie, right? When I need consciousness
when something axiomatic has moved.
Well, Yes, and it cashes out in this way. The problem I'm facing is now ill-defined rather than a well-defined problem
Yes.
for me. The problem is messy. There's sudden.
That's a path length multiplication problem.
Yes, and right, there's novelty. There is now stuff that I was previously able to discard as irrelevant error that I can't discard as irrelevant error anymore. So that
okay, John is getting into the question of relevance, but also very much attention, and now these things are going on beneath the conscious level. Why do certain things grab our attention?
And that would be associated with the fact that you'd have an automatized solution to whatever set of problems was making themselves manifest.
That's right.
You don't have to attend to it because you've already taken it into account. Even your perceptions has taken it into account.
And so if you're driving, many of you, they've talked about zombie driving. Many of us have had the experience where perhaps it's a drive back and forth to work. You've driven that road so many times, you get home and you can't even remember having driven that road. And the reason is because nothing has happened that has caught your attention, and maybe you were thinking about whatever it is you're worried about, or you're daydreaming, or you're imagining what you're going to do this weekend, or what have you. But you can sort of do automatic driving because nothing novel or threatening or a whole bunch of things is happening, and so you just stay right there in doing what you're doing.
Now, if you recall back to the previous segment I made from the distillate about entropy and positive emotion, what happens is your salience landscaper goes, hey man, we're in chaos right now. And so that's when your consciousness comes online, because like one of the primary functions that this wonderful beast we are in does is it gets better at anything we do. It's an automator. It's like, all right, I have this much resources. If I do this on autopilot, then it minimizes the amount of resources, and then I can spend the rest of them doing more of this automizations.
Allow a lot of little regular networks to run it.
Yes, right.
But now I get into this situation and I need to go into, right, a small world network. I need to have the system. I need to evolve and enhance my relevance. That's why you get a flash of consciousness when you have insight. You actually get that. And so you get that.
Or when something goes wrong.
Yes.
Right. It's like, that's consciousness. It's like, who wants that? But
now I haven't said anything about Jordan's suit. That's Jordan's Twitter suit. And I guess there's a lot of little Elon Musk pictures on the tie. Someone tailored Jordan a bunch of special suits. We've seen these in some of the other videos. We have the dragon suit, and this is the Twitter suit. And these have been a topic on Twitter, as you might imagine, where people have their takes on the suits. My take, I think it's fun. Why not?
Okay, so and
my take. He still wishes he was the clown and wants to keep the keck hat. And this is him being in service to that. He like when his little friend Johnny Paggio says, watch the clown, Peterson wants it to be him that he's talking about. And so he dresses funny. That's my take. But my take is also it's a JBP interruption from the important bit, where he's saying how when the salience landscaper gets the attention of the system, the salience landscaper has the relevance realization that the situation is critical, and he wakes up the self-organizing criticality, and the self-organizing criticality sends out this signal, and the signal induces synchrony. Whatever kind of synchrony we're going for among all the subroutines to engage the small world network of like, okay, like the captain is on the bridge now, bitches.
There's a longer argument here, but you can take a look at, Clearman's radical plasticity hypothesis, Tononi's integrated information. Basically, they all converge on what consciousness is doing is its higher order relevance realization, which of course is what working memory is doing. Like,
All right, first person to say muted gets a +7 bonus to the hierarchy, and it looks like it's Magic, and she doesn't get the bonuses. So Bart, +7 to the next saves. I like the ear emoji method of letting me know I'm muted. It's more recognizable than words. Like words are just, there's always words over there. There's not always an ear over there. I'm not sure I like having my comment looked at like that. Okay, so the comment was, once upon a time, Pastor Paul, I said, okay, Anselman sent me the video. The video I called Unapologetic Christianity. Paul said, what's that video you're calling that? And then I told him, and he never brought it up again. In that video, he goes after Ken Wilber really hard. And with Tom Wright also bringing up Ken Wilber up here, then it makes me wonder if we should not bring the Ken Wilber and his philosophy into our consciousness workspace. I don't know what the time warp is or what you guys mean when you say that. It's very confusing. Welcome to Being Virtually Not Alone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, and this one's nice. No, that's just what I called it. Oh gosh. It's I'll find it for you sometime, Tom. I can't do it now.
like the stuff that our colleague Lynn Hasher was talking about at work. It's not just Miller's holding space, because that doesn't really account for why chunking is so important. No, it's functional. It's sort of the last ditch survey of how good is my relevance realization before.
Hang in there. We're getting there, and something, right now, this can even be an example of what they're talking about. You're hearing all of this stuff go on. You don't understand many of the words, just on. And then Jordan's going to say something, and bang, you're interested again.
Before I commit to action in the world, right? I think salience is actually just relevance to your working memory in that fashion. So the functionality, okay, so let's say that there's a growing convergence, remember.
So I'm looking up, I got it, but I'm going to find a part. But I heard him say this, and I think it's important.
Before I commit to action in the world, right? I think salience is actually just relevance to your working memory in that.
Yeah, that's why. Because to your working memory, right? But your is yourself, and yourself is the fiction that organizes all of. So your working memory is also the part of the it's a self. I just wanted the self part.
Fashion. So the functionality. Okay, so let's say that there's a growing convergence, remember plausibility, from many different people onto The function of consciousness is higher order recursive relevance realization. Your unconscious has done some preliminary relevance realization, and then you do the, yes, but this is the demanding, and you ratchet up the relevance realization. Is that plausible? Okay, now if you give me that, right, I can start to talk a lot about the phenomenology of consciousness beyond the functionality. But I need to make a distinction. I need to make an important distinction that has not been.
And the reason you can now start to talk about the phenomenology is because you have the self fiction to relate to discuss the relationship in the narrative storyline of. I did find the relevant portion of what that video. The video is called Peter Jones, A Gnostic Gospel. So I don't know who Peter Jones is or who these Ligonier Ministries people are, but apparently it's stuff Paul doesn't like to talk about, so that's interesting. Here's the part on Peter Jones. I searched the transcript.
It's the future. And it behoves us to realize that the opposition ahead of us is massive and extremely intelligent and determined to work out this theory and bring it into practice. But there's one scholar I want you to note more than any other. His name is Ken Wilber. Into this triumphalist spirituality steps a new Gnostic prophet by the name of Ken Wilber, who wrote a book in 2001 entitled A Theory of Everything, an integral vision for business, politics, science, and spirituality. The new term, by the way, so that you don't look silly, is not New Age, but integral spirituality or progressive spirituality. These people don't like the New Age people because they were so focused on themselves, you see, because their agenda is now worldwide, and they don't want to be identified with some little small group anymore. So
like openly hostile as unapologetic, and so there's that. It's a little an aside, but asides are fun around here. I always think.
Well, I would argue it hasn't been made very well, and therefore there's a deep equivocation and confab. You need to make a distinction between adjectival qualia are the felt experience things. And you need to make a distinction between the adjectival qualia and the adverbial qualia.
Now, this I think is a very interesting idea, and it's going to go some interesting places. The adjectival qualia and the adverbial quality. He's about to sort of spell it out.
Adjectival qualia are greenness, blueness, the ones that philosophers love to talk about. Adverbial qualia are...
Like qualia itself is interesting. It's like a data source for the self thing, right? It's like it feels this way, the feelingness of it, and like that it's the if something is blue or green, like that's a property of it, and that's an adjective because you're describing it. And if it's an adverbia, then it's a feel, to you you're describing. But here's him doing that while I get some more water.
Are things like here-ness, now-ness, togetherness.
Now, if you understand John's 4 points of knowing, these are the other 3 besides the propositional. The propositional are greenness, the bike is green, the car is silver, these things, nearness. This is much more embodied.
Now you say, well, why would I ever need that? Okay, so Politicians work.
Why are those adverbial?
Because they're modifications of how you are connected to the world. They are not specific properties.
Okay, so does that correspond to a noun? That's a noun-verb distinction in some sense? So it's what things are versus the different, what would you say, modification of qualities of their function?
How they could co-emerge in being and in your consciousness. So let's talk about two pieces of empirical evidence that support what I'm saying.
How they can emerge in being and your consciousness. Hi, everybody. I'm General Griswold Gaius Grim with the first LARP Ingression Protocol, and you're watching my live stream. Transcending space. Trance-Ending. Okay, Trance-Ending. Why did it say Trance-Ending? Maybe this whole thing is a trance. See, what I do know of Ken Wilber, this fellow, is I saw a video of him once where somebody asked him, "What do you think will happen when you die?" And he said, "I think I'll keep dreaming." And that was like, that landed on me very fucking hard. So I can see why people want to talk about what he has to say. Wilbur helps with getting out of a too political world left and right. Helpful for sense making and understanding mainstream media. Mainstream. Where does that flow to? You wonder.
I'm not just drawing this as speculation. One is, and I've been in this state, and it's widely reported, many different people across many different variables.
Sorry. That wasn't the aside I wanted. That wasn't the aside I wanted to take. The aside I wanted to take is that the rebel wisdom boys, for some people, nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what the Stoa means. And like, I barely do, because it was so commercialized, target marketed toward yuppies, that I really couldn't stand to be there. But like, there's great people that got here through there with stories to tell about being there, and I would love to have those people on. So if you know Stoa people or Rebel Wisdom people who are still around the corner, tell them no, that Grim is looking for fringe encounters with those folks. That's the aside.
Culturally, history, you can get into what Foreman calls the pure consciousness event. So you're not conscious of anything. You're not even conscious of consciousness. You're just purely conscious. It's
Now, if you remember John's conversation with Grim Grizz, this was an item of attention, the pure consciousness state. John talks about it at Thunder Bay.
Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I know you guys have been here this whole time. Yes, Grim, I'll do some lobster monkey laughter. Part of the product line is a kintsugi cut. And in that case, if you were making a kintsugi cut in this situation, then you might go find this conversation that he's mentioning. That's an awesome thumbnail, bro. I know. Look at that. You might find this conversation that he's talking about. It's in the conversations and such playlist, I'm sure. I'm sure he's added the one with Vervaeke in there, right? He called it the hap. Yes, here it is. You can find the happening.
Recording in progress.
Well, that's how it started for everybody. You could show the transcript, find the transcript, and maybe search pure and see if it comes up. Hey, here we go. Right. So in a kintsugi cut of the thing, it would go like this.
It's
Now, if you remember John's conversation with Grim Grizz, this was an item of attention, the pure consciousness state. John talks about it at Thunder Bay.
Even though these people often feel that their woo is part of the solution.
You have, correct, experienced one of those pure consciousness events.
I've experienced pure consciousness event. I've experienced resonant at one mint. I've had mystical experiences, visionary mystical experiences. I massively.
Okay, so you get the process as far as the product line, how a KC or a kintsugi cut does that sort of thing, right? Okay, you guys got it.
In my conversation with John and Jordan, I very much wanted to bring, let's say, popularist mysticism down to the local church level at a very common space. It's certainly below the pure consciousness level, but it's, I think, analogous to what John is often talking about in terms of the non-narrative. Tomorrow, today's the 12th, tomorrow, the 13th, my conversation on climbing Mount Sophia will come up, and
sir. We only inadvertently.
You pure black out. There are no objects. There are no things. But you don't black out. What there is there's a sense of here-ness, but it's pure here-ness, eternity, right? And presence, I should say.
Yeah, eternity. This is where it gets, because in this pure consciousness event, as in many mystical events, or at least analogous events, linguistic description is difficult. And you have this right in the New Testament. The Apostle Paul talks about what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard. You have, Paul talking about being caught up to the third heaven, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly not unfamiliar with experiences that challenge descriptions. And again, this sort of gets into C.S. Lewis in Miracles when he talks about the nature of life.
I believe in miracles. As you may or may not recall, there's a banner. We're doing a little Lobster Monkey Lighthouse thing. And here's one from Joe Schmo 88.
And it's so hard to find a way to get people to sit still for a minute and listen to a radio show on a television show.
No, it's difficult. I remember when, of course, radio, and a lot of the youngsters, they only hear the music, but the great thing about radio in those days, we won't go back to the Mercury Wonder Players, you're probably tired of that story, but the invasion of Mars, you could create that illusion, and the audience's mind filled everything else in with simple sound effects, and on television, you have to show it.
You see, in a funny way, radio was a wider screen. Mae West said the other day to our friend Dick Cavett, that she'd never wanted to be on TV because she didn't want to be on anything that was smaller than life.
There's a point there.
Where she looked small. Isn't that a funny line? And television is a sort of Punch and Judy frame.
You're right.
And when you were on radio, there was no frame. It was as wide as the world itself, You were suddenly wherever you thought you were. And it's so hard to find a way to get.
That was a damn excellent catch, Joe. Damn excellent catch. And here's one from the guy who's recently been scared off of YouTube, as far as I can tell. Our good friend Gavin was submitted this before that.
As a climber, when you see a lizard, you think, I'm pretty terrible at this compared to that guy. And so to then, want to be impressed because you're doing it more or less than another human, that's almost so silly because we're inherently never very good at it. And same with air sports. Look at the birds. We're never going to be that great at it, but so it's almost silly to be looking at the person next to you and thinking that says something about you. You have to do your own path. As a climber, when you see a
That was very inspirational. Thank you, Gavin. Here's the virtually not alone bubble, in case you're feeling that way. This is a kind of a weird transcending space and time stream with a bunch of special thanks to the Shadow Kabbalah production executives, the Buy Me a Coffee folks, the Patron kids, and the Substack fellas. That anybody who helps out, really. Your time and attention counts too, but it's a big point system with the indigo things, and that's sort of what I was working on the trip that ended in handcuffs, and which is in the beggar stream if you're interested. Magic's off the fluffer flamingo. I too am wearing thin. The whole here's some onboarding. This again is the Broken Clock Tower Discord, the Metanoia Marina. This is the Metanoia Marina part. The Lobster Monkey Lighthouse is where I show the clips you guys made, and but it's over here on the right side in the Discord, which is in the links below. That we actually do the reaping of the clips in the clip stream in the reaping room. You gotta make sure I know you're a person before you can get access. It's all very complicated, but this isn't a regular YouTube channel. This is a place where we come together and play as in the virtual space. Virtually not alone. We are. And So if it doesn't make sense, that's because you're probably used to just watching things. But you're watching a playground now. Welcome. Welcome. And while I didn't get into all of the transcending space and time nonsense, I did make the point that I think it kind of does when we clip it and we take these meta extractable gems and spread the good stuff. Is we bring the signal from the noise we heard, you know. I think that's part of what we do when we play here, and I think the big thing that, and I'm not gonna say that it's not true because Baba Wanyama's been leaning into it hard. Is that who's suffering? Like who's, if you can become aware that like if you can pull your awareness inward away from the thing you're doing, like who's sitting in a room in Oklahoma streaming to the internet? I am. Who's wearing this shirt? I am. If you can pull into the I, you'll see how much of the rest of it is a fiction, and this fictional you is the axiomatic presupposition from which both Jordan and John are operating. And despite John getting into a pure consciousness state, that nature, it seems to be elusive. Elusive! Bob's and monkeys. So, that's the stream.
Do you have anything you want to say in conclusion?
Yes, that's the stream everybody gets today. Sorry for the muted section. Remember, the first person that gets me mutes gets bonuses to next saves. Oh! No, it's amazing you all have been here. I appreciate your company. Thank you for making me feel virtually not alone. And have a blessed day.